all you inspirational bards and bardettes. Welcome back to I Cast Vicious Mockery. I'm Austin.
I'm Matt.
We almost missed the start of the show just now.
I know, we were... Can you see me sweating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had started 1 second later, this whole show would have been 1 second late.
Yeah, I know.
We deliver this show to your retinas on time. Let it be known.
Yeah, right.
Watch this episode actually come out late because of some stupid technical reason.
Yeah, right in your cochlea.
Right in. Oh yeah, we're gonna burrow right into your cochleas.
Yeah, right in there. So, we've got. I don't have anything else to say other than to get into the homebrew, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Let's just jump right in. All right, I've got one for you.
Yeah. Let's do that.
We got Bob World Builder on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
He goes by the name Bob World. But I can't say his name.
Bob World Builder.
Bob World Builder.
And
he's got really good videos on all sorts of stuff. This weapon quality system one is something I'd like to talk about because I think he didn't go far enough. I mean, it's actually great for what it is. It's like he really nails it. He was inspired by those sort of like video game systems where you can have all these different tiers of weapons and armors with different effects and stuff, and it kind of mixes and matches to make a million combinations, which you use one of throughout the entire game.
Because there is one best.
Yeah, and it's very clear what it is sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still cool that all those are there. And this is a similar kind of deal to that. It's the weapon quality system. Basically, the way that it works is you can upgrade your weapons, and it costs gold and time to do so, but they give you some benefits as well. Upgrading them a lot lets you do more damage.
Mm-hmm.
And it also allows them to be potentially, it gives them other qualities. So that's why it's called the weapon quality system. Some of the interesting things with the quality are that you can choose to use your weapons. We'll talk about that in a second. All right, so the tiers of it are ruined, faulty, standard, reliable, reinforced. It just from worst to best, that's how it goes.
Right. So there's like the standard weapon, like how it is as rules written in the game, and then it's got like two degradations and 2 upgrades, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. Although standard might not be standard, actually. Like standard might be standard for a level 10 character, depending on your setting.
Well,
a ruined weapon might be more like what somebody would normally use, or you might just pick up a ruin, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Depends. It just depends.
You
can adjust it, but yeah, I like the idea of standard being what you normally have, and then 2 levels better, 2 levels worse.
Right. That's what I'm imagining here with this chart is like, you walk into just any old blacksmith, you're going to get standard.
Right.
Regular weapon.
Right. And, well, I guess it depends on how much you pay them, though, too.
Well,
if you want a discount weapon, you can buy the faulty one.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah,
So it's
there
already, this already gives you some cool options that you didn't already have.
Yeah.
But here's what I love about this. Sorry, I think my phone vibrated. The quality can change on a certain weapon. You can upgrade it, and it can get downgraded. I think he said something like when you get hit with a critical hit, you can choose to expend your level on it, essentially. So it downgrades 1 level on your weapon, or possibly it might be able to take more than 1 hit like that, but it negates the critical hit.
Right.
Meaning like it turns it to a normal hit or blocks it. Doesn't matter really too much right now about that. You can balance that mechanically yourself. Or read through the PDF of it that's on his Patreon, or check out his video for the full details of how he balances it, right? But I love the idea that, like, first of all, it's not magical.
Yeah.
These weapons were just like they were, a blacksmith worked on this weapon to make it stronger. And now, because of that, it can take a hit better than it could before. Now, that doesn't actually maybe physically work with real world weapons, but it's okay.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's all good.
If you wanted like world accuracy, then don't play Dungeons and Dragons. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
fantasy game.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like the choice of it too. Like
Hmm.
you can expend the level and maybe you won't have a reinforced weapon anymore. It'll just be reliable. Maybe it'll go down to standard. Or if you have a standard weapon, you could choose to take that penalty, but get out of this critical hit.
Right.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it looks like so. If I'm reading this correctly,
Hmm.
it looks like a reinforced weapon. Um, you roll an extra damage die and you take the highest, so it basically gives you advantage every time. Is that what I'm seeing?
Um, you roll if you hit, you roll the damage twice and take the highest.
Okay,
So
so the
it gives you a higher
damage
average damage.
average damage.
Hmm.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Hmm.
And a
Yeah.
faulty weapon gives you lower damage.
The faulty weapon, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you roll two dies. Why isn't there a
dice.
plural for die? And
There should be.
you roll two dies and you take the lowest one, so you have a lower average damage with the faulty weapons. And then ruined ones,
You don't add
you
your
don't add
modifiers,
any weapon modifier,
so it's just the roll.
and attack rolls are made with disadvantage. So
Oh yeah,
you're not gonna hit, and when you do, you're not gonna do much damage.
right. So, and the way that D&D describes like um it, for being an RPG, there are
Mhm,
some things about D&D that are very un-RPG like, because the way that it describes encounters, like if you encounter a bunch of enemies, generally speaking, unless there's something special going on, whatever weapon that they're using is supposed to be basically useless for the player characters.
mhm,
It usually, obviously you can make whatever exceptions you want. Like if you want to give a goblin a wand of fireballs that they can drop and be picked up by the party, that's cool too.
mhm.
But um I think that it is um interesting to maybe even make the weapons that the enemies have like roll on a table or something to see. Maybe most of them are ruined.
Mhm.
Like they were using ruined weapons because they were
Or it got ruined
like
because,
goblin,
they're
or
of that fight.
yeah, 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 something like that. But maybe one of them has a reliable weapon,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and maybe you could pick it up afterwards.
Definitely. I think rolling for loot drops,
Oh
that's
yeah.
good. That's a good thing. Um, just in general. So add that to your table of like, all right, here's the first roll. What kind of weapon is it? Second roll, what kind of, that sort of thing.
Nobody's gonna complain about rolling more dice usually.
Yeah. Now he has some additional properties here
Hmm.
for weapons that you can add on to them. And basically they um they make it so it has different properties like fine allows it to be concealed more easily.
Ooh, okay.
Plus also maximum damage if the target is surprised. That's pretty nice.
Oh, yep, that's a
Yep.
rogue
Yep. That's a
weapon for
very
sure.
rogue weapon. That's a whoo boy, that's a critical hit waiting to take somebody out immediately. A weighted weapon you could see there. If you roll maximum damage with it, the target is moved or knocked down. Pretty nifty. Uh, no, that might be hard for me to remember, but some people might like that. He has some cool ones there like that though. Now,
Hmm.
I want to take it a step further than this, though. That's what I want, because I think that there is a play style which is missing from the game right now.
Really?
Yeah. I want to play MacGyver, right?
Yeah.
I want to just be able to take whatever dumb things are sitting around and put them together and make some weapons and give them to my party. And that's what I do.
Like an
I
artificer?
yeah. Well, an artificer who doesn't just have the ability to make a specified list of magic items that they can spend a month and 1,000 gold to make one or stuff like that, depending on how it's supposed to work. It's hard to even tell.
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, no, this would be like an artificer subclass
Mhm.
um, called the Artificer MacGyver. All right, we'll come up with
Mhm.
a name for it later.
Yeah, right.
But what it does is it allows you to modify weapons, armor, other items, and you can infuse them with magic, which is already a normal artificer thing. But you can also like just physically modify them,
Oh,
right?
like Codename Kids Next Door.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. You get the
Yes,
yeah. You get, like, some planks of wood and a spring, and then you've got a wappy thing.
yeah, exactly.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that would be your main method of dealing damage, not through your own attacks, although you could use the weapons yourself, certainly. But it's really like upgrading things and on the fly. How cool would that be? I don't know how you're gonna do this yet. Like we can
Mhm.
think about it right now. I don't know how it's gonna, uh, be laid out as consistent, stable rules or anything. But how cool would that be to like, oh shoot, this thing's resistant to bludgeoning damage. Quick, give me your quarter staff. I'll make it into a spear.
Yeah. I found some flint.
Yeah, like oh yeah,
Yeah,
I rolled on the thing and I
y
found a
found yeah.
that I love that. You roll
Oh,
on a table to see what you find
yeah.
nearby.
Or, like, you go over and you, like, break a window, and then you
Hmm.
find a piece of glass that's sharp, and
Yeah, and you're like, all right, it's
that's
a
an it
glass spear. Let's
it's
do this.
sure, whatever. Well, yeah, because that could work for 1 or 2 attacks.
Yeah, yeah,
Got a
and
couple.
I like the idea. In fact, I like that idea too. That the weapon could break apart after a use or two,
Mhm.
but at least it lets you get the thing done, right? Like,
Right, right.
um, basically, instead of fighting, you're running around being like, "All right, let's either break stuff or fix stuff and make this thing happen."
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Break something to fix something else, yeah.
Now it's already partially, like my character Liam does this a little bit, because like he makes grenades and things like that,
Mhm.
um, and those have been a little bit useful.
Yeah, they were very useful.
They're gonna be effective. It just takes him a really long time. He can't like come up with something on the fly and do it because there's no rules for that,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't really fit his character archetype anyway. He
Mhm.
isn't that type of artificer, but gosh, it would be pretty sweet if we were like, shoot, we need something to hit that with lightning. Like right now, you're like this sword has to be able to, and then using a combination of magic and mechanical knowledge, you can convert your rogue's bow into a bow that, well, I guess maybe you'd convert an arrow into an arrow that calls down a lightning bolt or something sweet like that.
Yeah, that's cool stuff.
Hmm.
I definitely like a superconductor
Hmm.
arrow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So
Like how in Breath of the Wild, if you have like, if your weapon is starting to attract lightning, you could throw it at an enemy and potentially hit them with the lightning.
yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
And that's only one idea. But basically you use a combination of like spell slots and also, proficiency slots that artificers get for other stuff. Um, and you can create a certain number of modifications then per long rest or short rest or whatever it ends up being. I guess it would all be long rest. Artificers work on long rests, and that's the saddest part of being an artificer. Because you're like, all right, I got 3 spell slots, and I can make a cannon that lasts an hour. So let's not use those spell slots. Anyway,
Um,
I think we're on to something.
yes, I agree. I
Uh,
like the idea. I like the concept. Um, for sure. It would be fun to play around with,
mhm.
play test it a little bit with some like isolated scenarios or something. Like a couple one shot ideas with a character like that. Um, I think any good idea worth exploring is also worth play testing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think that if you just come up with a concept of something and then you just decide that that's okay and you're going to put it in your campaign,
Mhm.
it's going to be harder to balance it in the middle of a game,
Right.
like an ongoing game with like a
Yeah.
story and
Yeah.
like
Big time.
connecting threads, right? Yeah. So it's good to like see if it'll work. And you can always tweak the rules of the game
Mhm.
anytime you want. So you can either tweak the mechanic to fit the rules or you can tweak the rules to fit the mechanic. It can work either way. You just have to be
Now, how do you
careful.
play test it? Right? Like, because you could do it yourself, but I feel like if
No.
you know the whole purpose and all of the reasoning behind an item or spell or whatever homebrew thing,
Mhm.
I feel like that causes problems, right? Like that makes it so
It
you
feels,
use it the right way.
yeah, every
You
time,
don't you
and
don't
yeah.
like exploit flaws with it or things like that. You
Oh,
just
okay,
do
yeah.
it how it's supposed to be done.
I thought you were almost gonna say the opposite, like, because you know exactly how it works and exactly how to use it, you would use it the best way for the scenario every time.
It's both, I guess.
Yeah,
It really would be both.
yeah, I guess so. Can be
Um,
both.
so yeah, like let's talk about let's talk about playtesting this one in particular.
Okay.
Because this is a tough one to playtest.
Mhm,
Let's say you set up a whole party to do it, like you get a whole campaign going.
mhm.
That's excessive, and also not really playtesting then, right?
Right, exactly.
So what defines the playtest?
I
We
think
want to probably test it in combat because that's where the rules are often the most rigid,
yes.
like time-based stuff, turn-based stuff, action-based stuff.
Mhm.
That all, it has defined times to happen in combat. So you'd want to test it all there
Right, and
at
I
the very
think
least.
a minimum of 2 players should be
Mhm.
involved.
I
So,
agree.
a DM and then at least 2 players. Probably something where you would just throw it out there to a group of people that either you already play with or are interested in D&D and D, and just say,
Mhm.
"Hey, can 1 or 2 of you guys help me play test a mechanic?"
Mhm.
In a quick one shot.
Now, what we can do. All right. So for testing this particular one,
Mhm,
the you have a DM
mhm,
and you have a player. Let's say you have 2 people to play test this.
mhm.
The player would definitely need to play as the artificer subclass that we're talking about here.
Exactly, yeah.
And this is not very extensive playtesting. The real stuff that gets put in gets playtested by a lot of people over a
Yeah,
lot of time.
right, exactly.
Um,
There's no
you
Mario
don't
Club
need
here.
that for what's that?
Isn't that what they're called? Mario Club? Club Mario? The people that do the playtesting for Nintendo games? Or not even just Nintendo games,
Yeah.
but
Uh, yeah, but it's that. Yes,
yeah,
there is none of that
you're right,
for your homebrew,
right.
right? Which is fine because the homebrew isn't going to be exploited by thousands of people. It's just going to be your friends, and they might figure it out, but they might not if there's some kind of flaw.
Right. Oh, and depending on what kind of group dynamic you have, they might recognize some exploit and just choose not to do it because, you know, like, especially if it would be something that would be game breaking or
Hmm.
make it not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Um, The interesting thing about D&D is you could also boil it down to that, because if you're not doing Adventurers League, which is like a bunch of random people that might not even know each other
Mhm.
all playing together. If you're not doing that, then it never hurts to have a conversation like, "Hey, the way that this is worded and the way that the rules work means that you could do this with this thing, but please don't." You know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
that sounds good.
yeah, like technically you could do this, but
Technically, nah.
technically,
Um,
yeah.
okay, so the setup for this then.
Mhm.
We've got a DM and a player.
Yep.
Here's what I'm thinking to test this particular thing.
Mhm.
You give the player control over only the artificer, and you create a party of NPCs, and you just do a fight where it's a party of NPCs
Mhm.
and the artificer and a party of monsters. And you control all the NPCs. I would not make them full characters. I would just give them a couple of abilities and like known weapons.
Mhm.
Give all that information to the other player and say, okay, they're gonna fight now. Make them win,
Yeah.
right? Like
Uh-huh.
see if you can do anything to affect this.
Right. Yeah, you almost wanna set up sort of like those training lobbies that they have in a lot of, like, what genre is that? Like MOBAs or uh, uh, what's like Overwatch? What is that kind
Yeah, I
of
think
game?
it's technically some kind of MOBA.
Yeah. But like all those like fighting type games or uh like even something like PUBG or something like that.
I guess no, I guess
Yeah,
technically maybe Overwatch isn't considered a MOBA. I'm not sure what's considered a MOBA. I guess Overwatch is just a first person shooter.
Battle Arena,
Like a
but
character action shooter, battle arena.
I,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not I'm not I'm not up to date on all the terminology. That's not even new terminology. I just don't know any of it anymore. Anyway, uh, they have like a lobby where you can like take a character and you can practice with them, like figure out what their deal is. Like they have like puppet, like there's no way to get hurt, or
Mhm.
sometimes there is, but it's like pretty easy to dodge, um, or pretty easy to control at least. Uh, and then even if you die, there's no consequence really. So that's kind of what this feels like to me. Like one of those training arena things in a video game where there are no consequences and you can sort of play around with the mechanics.
Mhm.
So meaning that like when you're doing this, it might be cool to explore like other possibilities. Like maybe even like rewind the clock, put characters and monsters and things back to previous spaces and pursue a different like
Yeah.
strategy or avenue to like really get the hang of what this mechanic can actually do and what kind of versatility it has. Um, that way mm, you can explore it more fully without having to repeat it from the beginning.
Right. Well, and so that's one thing I
Hmm.
guess is to sort of allow that ability to kind of retcon moves and like go back and redo stuff. You also want to play it at different levels, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
um each level that you gain a specific ability maybe would be a good way to do it.
Right.
Like any subclass level
Every
for this one.
yeah, probably every 4 levels or so,
Hmm.
you should try a different encounter and
Yeah.
scale it accordingly.
Now, how do you get somebody who's willing to play test stuff like that with you? I have no clue, man. You're on your own for that one.
You just ask.
Having friends,
There's u
that's tough.
there's usually somebody willing to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
You like, I mean, pretty much every time, and it might even be the same person every time, and I think that's fine. It might be good to try to, see if you can get somebody new, but, like, obviously, if I ever did that, it would definitely be Carly
That's what I yeah.
who would wanna do it.
Yeah.
For sure. Um, but, but I don't know. I think other people would be willing to do it. I think, like, I'm sure you would do it if I asked you.
Would I?
I don't know, but I could assume
I
so.
don't know either.
I actually don't know if anybody else would. Or like I wonder if anybody else would actually do it or if they would everybody else would try to like get out of it
I
somehow.
don't know. I feel like most playtesting for homebrew is done solo. Like most people just do it themselves,
Yes,
if that.
yes.
Otherwise, they just kind of like they come up with something and then they think about it for a long time and
Right.
that's it.
Yeah. Which only gets you so far. But
Right.
I've done that before where I've
Hmm.
sort of play tested something myself
Hmm.
and it's kind of boring
Yeah, exactly.
to do
That's why.
to do it
Yeah,
by
that's why
yourself.
people don't want to do that.
Right. Uh cool. All right. Well, is there anything else about this that you want to hash out?
Well, no, not about that one in particular.
Or
I do. Yeah, I do want to figure out the artificer subclass probably at some point that is based on
MacGyver?
MacGyver.
Yeah.
I've never even watched MacGyver.
I've
I just
only
get the
s
idea a little bit,
Yeah, I've seen clips
but
from,
that's
like,
all that matters.
old episodes of, Mythbusters.
Yeah. Um, but
Um,
yeah, that idea of I guess somebody who sees sees solutions where other people see junk, and can think like that on the fly. That would be super fun to try to like do in action. Um, that'd be pretty cool.
right. It also this is a thought I had earlier that I didn't voice yet, but it also sort of kind of it means that the battle map has to be very specific and intentional in how it's laid out.
Hmm.
Not even intentional, but like suddenly with this subclass, suddenly whether or not there's a vase there and what it is made of and what it looks like and what its shape is might be really important.
That's true, but you could also roll for that stuff, and it could be like sort of procedural,
It could be.
where like you roll and then you find something sharp
Mhm.
because that's what you're looking for, and then you can explain like what that was afterward. Like it doesn't have to be like basically like if
Mhm.
nobody asked, then nobody knows what was in there.
Right, maybe there was something there the whole time, right.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
You
okay.
you kind of have to take that approach with something like that, I think.
I think that yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right, though some people do, uh, put that much thought into every room and every dungeon that they make and
Right.
every
Yeah.
house that is significant. I do not.
Yeah.
Um, well, I did a little bit this time. I know that the plans to do the session kind of fell through, but before I knew that we weren't going to be playing yesterday, I had actually drawn a map
Hmm.
of the battle space to make it a little bit more clear. So I'll have to save it for next time. But I did draw a map, and it is more detailed than any map I have ever made before, in that it is detailed at all.
Sounds good to me.
It has details.
Um. All right. 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 Now there is another thing I was thinking about.
Okay, you had thoughts. That's
Hmm.
good. That's good. We're in the right track.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I've been thinking about this for gameplay stuff. One of the main problems that I feel like DMs run into, um, based on what I'm seeing from other DMs and what I've seen myself, is getting the players to understand what kind of things they have to be doing in order to move forward.
yes.
Uh, because you can do anything you want, and so what should I do becomes a question of like which one of these 80 billion things should I do right now? Uh, it's not even just that it's overwhelming though. It's not like there are too many options. It's just literally like, all right, well, I can imagine some person to talk with, but I thought that you were bringing that,
Yeah.
right? Like I thought that
Yeah.
was your job. Um, so like as the player, it's very difficult to to just say like, all right, I want to go do this. I'm going to go find a blacksmith or what, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, you can say it, but then like you're already up against some odds of them being like, oh no, there's nothing like that here.
Right.
And or as the DM, you can yes and everything, but then that creates a mess as well, doesn't it?
Right, because then there's suddenly like a posh jewelry shop or like a magic shop in every small rinky dink town that
Mhm.
you get. That sort of ruins the immersion. It breaks the
Right,
fourth wall in a way,
right.
almost.
So I think what you do
Mhm.
is you totally put the players on rails 100% of the time.
Yeah.
You never let them leave your intended path.
Yeah, you put those gutter guards up
Oh, yeah. And then they'll roll a strike every time or
every
at
time.
least a 1.
At least one. They're getting at least one
They're
pin every
getting 1
time.
pin or more.
I know what you think. You think they're gonna sneak it right in between where the gutter ends and like that pin on the edge is, but no, we've actually curved the end in toward the pins.
Ooh, pretty good.
They're definitely getting at least one.
All right. So now,
Uh-huh.
here's what I'm thinking though.
Okay.
Um, what about bowling in D&D?
Bowling in D&D, that's
Bowling
what I'm
in
trying to
D&D.
tell you.
Now you've got to sort of show your players what types of gameplay are going to be happening in this game. You
Mhm.
could tell them about it and come up with it in session 0
Mhm.
or whatever, but you have to kind of gradually show them like step by step what it's good. Basically think of it the entire time that you're being a DM as a tutorial level in a video game where, they learn a new mechanic and you give them the tutorial on it. And then there's another new mechanic and you give them the tutorial on that. And you keep going like that. It's
Mhm.
like Banjo Kazooie.
Banjo Kazooie.
It's Banjo Kazooie.
Right.
Or maybe Banjo Tooie. I don't know which one I'm thinking of right now. Anyway, the idea is like if shopping
Mhm.
might be a big aspect of this game because that'll appeal to some of your players because they like managing money and they like to try to find unique items to use and things like that, and they keep track of their ammunition, and then you have a shopkeeper come up to them and try to sell them stuff and just say like, hey, you guys look like you could use, and you give them some examples of like, oh, this will appeal to this player.
Mhm.
Like literally you are just trying to sell them something to their character,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that's what you do. Right? You kind of gradually over time you give them more and more cues that like if you look around in the right places, you're going to find places where you can purchase some pretty amazing equipment. Or horses or hire people to help you, right? Like you
Mhm.
can hire mercenaries or you can hire an accountant. I don't know.
Ah, hire an accountant.
Yeah,
Interesting.
right? Yeah. Um, because like okay, for my character Liam,
Mhm.
I knew that he would be interested in business ventures and
Mhm.
basically like starting up a business. And I knew that he would want to have people in contracts to him basically.
Mhm.
So I just like found the first excuse to where I could do that. But as a DM, you can also ask your players beforehand, like what they think their character will kind of operate like what kind of things they would want to do,
Mhm.
and then start to introduce those each as the story unfolds. Now that's a lot of work. That's really tough. But I think I'm coming up with a good framework of how we can do this. All right. And well, you use the Mario method.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. The Mario method, yeah. You're talking about how you introduce a concept
Yep.
in in a completely non-threatening way
Hmm.
so that the player can like you can't progress without doing it,
Hmm.
but if you mess it up, no big deal. And you can, try it as many times as you need to.
Right.
Right. So it introduces the mechanic and then it iterates on that by making it now a challenge. And then it ramps it up
Mhm.
to a greater challenge. And then eventually, as the levels go forward, you introduce new mechanics and then you start putting those mechanics together.
Right.
Yeah. I
Um,
know what you mean.
and so here's an example of this. Let's
Okay.
say you want to use some unique status effects. Um,
Mm, mhm.
and by unique, I mean just ones that don't come up a lot. Disease is a good one as an example of that.
Mhm.
I think most players aren't going to prepare for disease by default.
Yeah.
Um, they're just gonna be like, all right, well, I gotta be resistant to fire and lightning and stuff. That like that'll get me covered.
Mhm.
But have one of the players come in contact with a diseased person and get the diseased condition, right? Like just literally like, oops, you got sick.
Yeah. Maybe it's the common cold
Yeah,
even, and, like, they'll be fine the next day, but
right.
for that day.
Yeah. Um,
Uh-huh.
and then next you would try to in fact, what I would do there is if it's something like that, I would try to, while they're still sick, get them into combat to show them, hey, this affects your combat a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like you're not gonna be super messed up, but you probably don't want to fight the boss this way. So you should probably start thinking about ways to not be sick
Mhm.
when you're in a big fight.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next thing, which is, all right, now this disease is a result of combat. These monsters give you a disease while you're fighting them. You have to deal with that and fight them, right? And it's not a trivial task. They would have been tough for you if you were totally fine, and now they've got this.
Mhm.
And then finally, you try to sort of have them put it together against something really tough. I think that that's a good way to go for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, basically, you just kind of look at what your players seem prepared for. That's step 1. You figure out what they can already do.
Mhm.
Step 2 is you figure out what kinda challenge you actually want them to be able to overcome.
Mhm.
You think about, like, what is the boss gonna be? What is the end of this conflict gonna be? Because it doesn't have to be an actual fight, but it's easy to think of it in those terms. And then you think, how can I get them to that in 3 steps? Like, how
Yeah.
how can I not just put them right into it? How can I get, a small part of it, like, show them this is gonna be one of the challenges, this is gonna be one of the challenge this is gonna be one of the challenges. For instance, you could have enemies who sprout copies of themselves, um, and then you can also have enemies who deal, like, thunder damage. And then that's leading up to an enemy who is significantly stronger, deals thunder damage, and sprouts copies of itself. So they learn how to like deal with the crowd control first. They learn how to they realize that they need resistance to thunder damage next, and or something along those lines at least, some way to negate it. Maybe earmuffs,
Oh, yeah. Maybe,
right? Earmuffs for their whole body.
yeah, I was gonna say, not much you can do from a concussive blast like that, but
It's just a loud sound,
well, yeah.
sort of.
Is that what force damage is? Like a concussive thing? Because wait, that's actually not a bad theory because there's no resistance to it, really,
Hmm.
like naturally at least.
Yeah.
Shield
It,
negates it completely,
yeah.
um, or at least magic missile, which is force damage.
Right.
Um, and there aren't very many things that cause force damage. I'm thinking that it's like kind of like that.
Like it just jiggles your
Yeah,
insides.
like it's concussive.
Mhm.
Because like bludgeoning damage is already a different thing.
Right, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that causes surface damage, fracturing, things like that.
right.
I guess, if we're looking at what types of injuries it could cause, I would think that force damage could not break your bones. I think it hits you in a different way.
Right. It gets you right in the internal organs
Yeah, something like that.
or something.
Maybe. Who knows?
Gets you right in your brain, but
Well,
like,
no, because force damage can actually physically push your entire body back too.
yes, yes, it
So
can.
maybe I'm wrong. Then again, so can thunder damage.
Yeah, and that's not completely physical either.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
it's
it's
I mean
partially
it's
physical, but
yeah.
in fact, thunder damage pretty much that's the thing that it does the most. It usually is lower actual damage, but it has the added bonus of pushing things back.
Right.
Usually, it's actually pretty useful.
Mhm.
Um, Thunder wave or whatever. What is it? Thunder wave? Thunder smash?
Thunder wave. Yeah, it's not hugely useful most of the time.
No, not most of the
There are
time, but
certain situations where you would want it probably.
it is situationally useful.
Mhm.
And you could you could create scenarios where it is useful to show your players that it will be useful in the future.
Right, yes. Yeah. Now that's the other tricky thing about it though,
Yeah.
is in D&D there are a lot of classes who can prepare spells or
Oh,
things like
right,
that.
right. Different spells. Yeah.
And like how do you tell your player like, "Hey, with all due respect, you're not preparing the spells I want you to prepare. Like
Right.
I need you to prepare this spell so you can actually stand a chance against the big bad guy here. Because the whole party is going to rely on you at that point, and you're going to need to do a very specific thing in order to win this.
I think that a lot of that boils down to not making every encounter mysterious or even sudden.
Hmm.
You know, like if you have a lot of scenarios that um that the party is informed about and going to intentionally, like they know what to expect, and they know what they're trying to do, that helps people prepare spells. And then, you know, you can always throw in a couple of stuff that they didn't expect in there just to see how they handle it with the spells that they have.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Uh, like sprinkle in some lesser threats, things that aren't as big of a deal,
Right.
but like maybe there's like a spell or two that would be really good in this situation, but they're not completely done for if they don't have them prepared. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I also don't think I also don't think that you should make every big encounter that they do something that they can prepare for fully either. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. See, isn't that tricky?
It's tricky, yeah.
Because, for instance, as a player, I
Mhm.
would like to be able to surprise the other players with some cool move that I pull out in combat.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, you know, it helps to know what the other people are capable of and be
Yeah.
able to plan based on that.
Right, right.
Because otherwise, if
Mhm.
everybody, if no one knows what the other players are capable of, you pretty much all assume, like, I have to handle this whole encounter. Let's go. And then nobody does anything that sets anyone else up
For success,
for
yeah.
success.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I don't think you have to intentionally balance your party in any
Hmm.
sort of way, but I think yeah, I think that communication, uh, you know, between the players and figuring out what they can do and but I think that boils down to something we talked to last time too, where a lot of the times the players don't remember what their character is capable of sometimes.
That's true.
You know, like the player themselves can't remember everything they can do. Um, it sometimes comes down to, you know, what we talked about earlier in this session, where there's usually a grouping of items in an RPG that is like objectively the best and the one that you should use every time. I think that some players fall into the trap of their character has these abilities that are the best for them to use and they will use them every time,
Hmm.
which makes combat feel stale.
Right. It does. Yeah.
Right. Like,
Um,
um, but because, you know, each class and subclass doesn't have a ton of variety as to what they can do. The spell
Mhm.
casting ones do because spells have crazy different effects and abilities depending on what you
Even then, though,
prepare.
you choose like a school of wizardry.
Yeah,
College? School, yeah.
school, yeah.
So, like,
Um,
it's not like you're getting all the spells. You're like, if you're in abjuration, they're all gonna do kinda similar stuff.
yes, but you can learn other spells still
Yeah, I
as
guess
an
that's true,
abjuration wizard. You
but
just your abjuration spells are going to be extra extra spicy, extra
yeah.
crispy.
Um,
Uh,
I guess
yeah.
that's a good point. And now, is variety always the best, though? Like, I don't know. Um, like, people play chess.
Well, that's true. That's true, but they're using the same moves in different patterns, though not always.
Well, I mean, they're using the exact same like, they're using the same pieces every time. All the pieces always do the same things. And all that can change is the way that you move them on the board, right? Like the overall,
Right.
yeah, the overall pattern of the board.
But I think the issue isn't that there's a limitation on abilities. I think the problem is that it would be like playing chess and only ever using the queen and not even moving the other pieces.
Hmm.
That's kind of what it feels like some players will do. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, or maybe it's like playing chess, but all the pieces are queens. No, I don't know.
no,
Uh,
or like, I don't know. It's not a bad analogy. It's not the best analogy, but
well,
it's not a
because
bad
I don't
analogy
think
for
it's
this.
I actually don't think it's not fun to use the best moves, the best spells and feats and whatever for any particular situation. I think that uh the fun part of the gameplay is to figure out which spells are best. And if every situation it ends up being the same ones, um, then you just need new situations. Like you didn't make it not fun for yourself by choosing that spell or whatever. Like you chose whatever spells you have, and for some reason, everywhere that you go, fireball is the answer. And nobody is resistant to fire or like anything like that.
Yeah.
I think you have to blame the DM.
Blame the
You
DM,
have
huh?
to blame the DM for all your problems.
Right. But what do you do in a situation where the DM presents you with a fire resistant enemy and you still just cast fire, like a player still just cast fireball and it doesn't do it does half damage every time, but that's all they've ever done and that's all they know and they're not trying anything else. Like it,
I guess that is a different thing, isn't it?
right. I mean,
Yeah,
like
like if you have a player who's interested in finding the best solution every time, and they do, and it's the same a lot, then that's on the DM.
right.
But I guess what you're talking about is a player who doesn't want to try anything different.
Yeah, or doesn't want to think about what the best solution might be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, what do they want to do then?
Or I don't know. I
What
get
really though? What do they want to do?
right, exactly. What do they wanna do? I think that sometimes there's I've seen it where a player looks like they look almost defeated. Like,
Like I have nothing I can do here.
yeah, like, "I have nothing I can do here," but they don't even seem to really consider their other abilities and options.
Hmm.
They only they look at the one thing they've always done and they said, "That's not working.
Hmm.
Therefore, I'm useless in this fight." You know what I mean? Uh,
Which it can be the case depending on how they've set
w
stuff up. But
it could be the case, right? It could be the case, but I'm just trying to think other than giving you guys more magic items, which I would like to because they're cool and you guys should have cool stuff.
sure.
Um, other than that, I don't really know what else to do to sort of elicit a response that's like, creative.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
rather
that can be a little tricky.
than just iterative. Like I can only do the DM can only do so much
Mhm.
in terms of bolstering creativity. But I'd like to encourage it, but I just don't know how.
Well, I've got one way,
Okay.
which is the zero method, Mega Man X.
Okay.
You you just show them like, "Hey, you could be this cool. You could be as cool as this character who uses magic to do I don't know, maybe they just use magic as their day job and they do like prestidigitation for people or stuff like that.
Mhm.
And like literally they just go around entertaining people with magic.
Mhm.
And oh, you guys are short on funds. Maybe you're gonna have a like street magic battle with
Oh
this
man,
dude.
like a
And
rap battle but
right.
with street magic.
Yeah, and your character will goop out a bunch of grease,
Yeah,
and
like
that and then they'll be like, "That's pretty lame."
but then they set it on fire.
And that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
And the
People
city
like
burns down.
people like danger, don't they?
Yeah, they love danger. Yeah, it gets them very excited.
Right.
Uh,
And then they cast Long Strider and they jump over the grease fire thing.
yep,
Okay, we're getting there.
yep. So far, these are actually my character's abilities, by the way.
I know. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
no. What's the jumping one called?
Oh,
He has that too.
oh,
Is it just jump? I think it's just jump.
I thought that was Long Strider. No, Long Strider is the run fast
Long
one.
strides, yeah. It
Uh,
it lets you dash again as your bonus or without using an action or something. Like each turn you get an extra dash.
yeah, I was thinking of the long jump one where you can jump
I
far.
think that one's just called jump.
It might be just called jump.
And would it work over the grease? I think so. I think you can jump far enough with it.
Good. See, there's an idea right there.
Yeah. Of course, I haven't really used that particular combination of ideas. Okay.
Well,
We'll count it.
yeah, yeah. Well, you did. I mean, you've had some clever uses of spells and things.
Yeah, even though the spells to be honest, the spells with the artificer, with my particular one, I don't I take some pretty lame ones sometimes.
Yeah, I thought it was.
But yeah, I've come up with some cool uses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My favorite so far was when Liam. There was like one of those games where you hit something with a hammer
Mhm.
and like goes up the bell. Except it was a bucket of water.
Yeah.
At the top that splashes on you if you win.
Really good game.
Yeah, yeah, that was. I don't remember. Forrest came up with a lot of those.
Although turtles would like that, right? They'd be like, "Heck
Yeah,
yeah."
yeah, exactly. Well, that's why it's funny
Yeah.
because like specifically a turtle would think that's fun.
Okay, yeah.
But I think it was Long Strider that Liam used
And jump.
and jump.
Yeah, he did long stride or no, maybe not long stride. Long stride boosts your speed.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, long stride boosts your speed. He used that and he used jump and jumped with the
With
hammer
the
and
hammer, right.
ran into
And luckily
the target.
the target to hit rather than being like a traditional bell thing where you hit downward
Yeah.
and the thing goes up. Um it was corkscrewed and you actually had to hit it horizontally
So
for
he
it to
just ran real fast
real
and
fast
slammed the
and
hammer
slam
into
the
it.
hammer into the side of it, which I mean that's physics, man. So if you're going really fast like that, then
Yeah. Um,
sure. Um, and he did it. I think you were the only one other than Marty to actually.
Summit, I believe, or maybe
Oh,
she did, maybe not. I don't because her
yeah,
strength is
it
as high as
really,
Marty's or
yes,
something.
yeah, it is,
Um,
which is funny.
so she can easily do it.
Yeah, the lithe, uh, tabaxi
Sometimes you just luck out on those dice.
teenager is the same strength as the large, burly construction worker
Well, it's no wonder that the tabaxi
turtle.
in that part of the world in your setting have the turtles under their influence.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
That's true. There is like
Maybe
a
the Tabaxi just are super strong
there is a sort
compared to
of like
turtles.
a Native American living under like the United States sort
Yeah,
of.
they are almost like on a reservation, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that was sort of my inspiration for that
Hmm.
sort of lore, that little bit of lore there.
Yeah. Like they
Um,
came in, they were like, "Hey, we just want the land to do with whatever we would like, and
right.
we'll allow you. How's that? Allow you to still be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Isn't that nice?
yeah. Isn't that wasn't
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of us to do that for you?
yeah.
Um, oh man, yeah, there should be like special tax laws, I think, for the yeah. You know what? That's a good idea. I should write that in
Hmm.
to the lore of the campaign.
People come to the turtle settlements like just to
Like
buy stuff.
like gamble and buy
Yeah, gamble and
cigarettes.
buy cigarettes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Gas.
That could work. Yeah.
Yeah, I okay, cool. Um, great. Well, I think that was a great conversation about that. Do we want to do more with this episode?
Yeah, I got one question for you.
Okay.
Whose palm do I gotta grease
Okay.
in order to play a Way of the Ascendant Dragon monk who has also one of the breath powers, like breath attacks from the dragon
Oh, the dragon.
species that were added just now, the dragonkin species. They don't have to be a dragonkin. I'm okay with them not be, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah. Well, that would be tough because I literally said there are no dragons in the setting,
Yeah.
which is kind of true.
Yeah.
Though I have set a precedent that there is a dragon born
Hmm.
in the world,
Right.
uh,
Which is weird,
which
right?
is weird, right? I mean, what could that be like? What does that mean?
So I'm thinking that the person's personality
Uh huh.
is that they are an absolute crackpot.
Cool.
And the whole dragon thing is like it. There's not a dragon monk order or something like that. They're just a lunatic who like believes in dragons
Well, so
in
dragons,
a setting where maybe they don't exist.
dragons don't exist in the world, but maybe I don't know if I've said this or not, but they do exist conceptually,
Hmm.
the same way they exist conceptually in our
Right.
actual reality.
Yeah.
But in the
Th-
setting that I
this dude
have,
would be like, "I'm a dragon." He'd be walking around
oh
acting
man,
like he's a dragon.
like a scaly,
Yeah, 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 exactly.
walking around.
Um,
Okay, all right.
he'd be pretty nonchalant about that part. People would ask him like
Mm-hmm.
what his species is, and he'd be like, "Oh,
I'm a
I'm a
I'm a
bronze
I'm a
dragon."
bronze dragon, yeah. And they were like, okay,
Yeah, but he actually would be able to breathe lightning like a bronze dragon,
right.
for instance,
And you know
for
what?
some reason.
That doesn't have to be related.
Yeah, no, it could be totally
it could be a
unrelated.
complete.
He could have he could actually be like
Hold
a
on.
sorcerer or a warlock or something.
Bron Bronze is lightning? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Because there's the metallic, which are like the good dragons.
Hmm.
Then there's the chromatic, which is like the bad dragons.
Right. And then the gem ones, which are like the
Oh yeah, there are gem ones too.
yeah.
And in older editions, there are like shadow dragons
Hmm.
and crazy stuff like that. Let's see. The blue dragon is the one that shoots lightning for the chromatic.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's not silver because silver is the cold one, which
Right.
for the uh, uh, uh,
Metallic.
metallic. Yes, that's
Right.
the one. That's the word I'm looking for. Um, I don't know off the top of my head. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, I'm gonna go ahead and make a tentative sure on that. I don't have what is it, Fizban's
Yeah.
something of dragons.
Yeah.
I don't have that supplement yet, but I can get it.
Well, I'm not planning on abandoning my character currently or anything. Just if something comes up where he dies, I just want to make sure that this character concept could work. Because then I'll have 5 on the back
on
burner
the
or something
back-
like that.
5 on the back burner. There's got to reach a certain point where you look at them and you're like, maybe not that one anymore. Or are you still excited about all of them? Because I've done that.
I'm still excited about all of them, but I'd probably just play the one I came up with the most recently, maybe a lot of the time.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no, a lot like I still want to play Tama 5,
Oh
right? Like
yeah.
I really want to play that one, which is a little egg shaped warforged dude
Hmm.
who's a paladin because of some weird experiments involved in his construction that tied him to a god's powers. So
Hmm.
he's not a paladin because he swore an oath, but he's a paladin because like he's built that. He's just built different.
I'm built different.
So I really want to play that. I want to play my throat singing, bow slinging, Mongol horseback archer dwarf who who actually uses a like handheld ballista that he can only pull back the string on if his horse holds it down. Um, that could be fun. Or I
Okay.
was thinking he might be a centaur, in which case he could operate it, but nobody else could. But he would
Oh,
have
okay.
trouble climbing or things like that. Or he
Yeah.
could be a dwarf, and but then I would worry that his horse would die, and he would have to train a new horse or whatever. I don't even know.
His family is
Oh, it was going to be a very short horse too. So him on the horse
uh-huh.
is it would have been about normal person height.
Oh, it's like on a pony.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It would look like really the Mongols did have small horses. Like their horses
Yes.
were not they weren't Clydesdales or anything like that. They were these little nimble horses.
And they had
Um,
really good bows.
very good bows.
Very good bows.
So he would kind of be some, based off that. Um,
Hmm. Well, I know where he would be from because there is a Mongol
yep,
inspired
yep,
sort of
exactly.
country in the world.
Um, who else do I have on the back burner? I've got
Well, you know, not to interrupt, but you really have lined up these characters well with the world I've created because Tama 5 also could very easily be from the same place that Kinzoku is from
mhm,
as a Warforged.
yeah, yep,
Interesting. Okay, anyway.
yeah. Well, I think there are plenty of hooks.
Yeah, that's
Right,
true.
there's a lot of places to like be, to grab onto something and be like, all right, that I'll use for this, that I will use, put it together. That's a character concept right there.
Character concept.
Maybe we'll talk about that next episode.
Oh, yeah, hooks to character
Yeah,
concepts. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Dope.
That's all for now.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Catch you later, dudes.
Next time.